Here is aldosterone, a steroid hormone produced by the adrenal cortex. Hormones is going to travel in the bloodstream, and it's going to be stimulated, one, by low blood pressure. It can also be stimulated by high potassium, which kind of makes sense because it's resulting in potassium secretion. Last one that can regulate it is high osmolarity. This is the ratio of salt to water, so it's often going to be related to low blood pressure, but it's a different stimulus, and we'll see that in the future. That oftentimes you can have a change in osmolarity without a change in blood pressure. You can have a change in blood pressure without a change in osmolarity. They are different stimuli. So this is going to result in ultimately, and actually let me do some colors here. Two of these are going to stimulate aldosterone secretion. Osmolarity is going to decrease aldosterone secretion from the kidneys. That makes sense because we don't want to keep more sodium. The pathway along here is through granular cell. Well, it's actually more than one mechanism. It also is through baroreceptors, which trigger the sympathetic nervous system. Which is, both of these are going to result in renin and then angiotensin production. Long-term blood pressure regulation that we've already talked about because we're altering blood volume. The sympathetic nervous system also can result in short-term regulation. So vasoconstriction is going to happen at the same time if our stimulus is low blood pressure. So regardless of whether the stimulus is high potassium or low blood pressure, aldosterone is going to be released, and it's going to, I don't want red actually, no red. We're going to target the cells of the distal convoluted tubule, also the collecting duct. What are we going to do there? We're going to increase sodium reabsorption and increase potassium secretion. This is responding to this stimulus. We're getting rid of potassium by secreting it. It's also going to respond to this. So it can be stimulated by either one of these. Sodium reabsorption is going to increase water reabsorption. How does it do this, you ask? Let's dive into those cells and look at them here. So here is an image of aldosterone circulating in the bloodstream. Adrenal cortex produces this hormone in the bloodstream. It's going to, number one, bind to its receptor inside the cell, cytoplasmic. Why? It's a steroid hormone. So it's going to bind to a cytoplasmic receptor and initiate transcription, because that's what steroid hormones do. Of the gene of interest. 3 is synthesis. So actually of the protein, right? That's translation. What protein? Protein pump. Our sodium, potassium, potassium, sodium, ATP pump. This guy. Number 4 in this image, what is, oh shoot. What am I missing here? This is 3, 4, 3 and 4 are really the same. 4 also can be the modulation of existing channels. Side note, the new channels is what and pumps is what I focused on. 5 is really just the last step then, is increased what? Sodium reabsorption, increased potassium secretion. Okay. Again, it could be stimulated by low blood pressure or high potassium levels. And when aldosterone is low, sodium reabsorption in the DCT would not occur much, meaning our urine would stay dilute. Plasma potassium is really important because it affects excitable tissues. So that means the heart. You know all about electrical signaling in the heart now, as well as neurons are going to be affected by altered plasma potassium. So plasma needs to be kept in a normal range. We're going to go back to something you probably haven't seen since last semester, maybe. This is looking at membrane potential. Well, you've seen membrane potential with the heart. You have this semester. This conditions here shown are normal potassium levels in the plasma. So this is normal conditions with a stimulus that is below threshold. You would not have an action potential fire. It's not a strong enough stimulus. Whereas if you do have a large enough threshold to reach to meet threshold, you would have an action potential fire. That's what's happening on the right here. Normal kalemia means normal potassium levels, right? So this is just saying a given stimulus is either strong enough to cause an action potential or not. We look at that action potential by what crossing threshold, and then it's all or nothing for this action potential to occur. So if we have altered potassium, you might not be surprised. We're going to have alteration of how this, what this looks like. So the first one I want to show you is hypokalemia. Hypo means low, right? And we're talking about low potassium in the blood. So here's our cell. Normally there's higher potassium inside the cell than outside. That's still true here, but levels outside the cell, that's where the blood is, are even lower than normal. This is going to cause hyperpolarization of the membrane. We have more potassium leaving than normal. Potassium normally leaves the cell through leak channels, but there's a larger drive than usual because of that hypokalemia, low levels on the outside. So more potassium will exit the cell, have hyperpolarization, and it's more difficult to fire an action potential. This can cause muscle weakness. And on the heart, it actually is a little bit different even. You remember the heart has funny channels. In the heart will actually increase heart rate because we're reaching that funny, that hyperpolarization is what's stimulating that regular beating. So we're basically coming back to the funny currents are working more quickly, are happening more quickly. So on the heart, it's a little bit different. Hypokalemia increases heart rate due to how the funny channels work. Again, here you can see that the lower hyperpolarization. With the heart, remembering that hyperpolarization is what causes funny channels to open, right? The other end of this then is hyperkalemia. This is when potassium is too high in the blood, right? This is even more dangerous because it makes, especially for the rest of the body, so like muscles, because it makes excitable tissues more excitable initially. So it's actually depolarizing cells, right? And make the opposite of our hypokalemia. So a stimulus would cause an action potential more easily. We have more excitability. However, what happens over time is cells aren't able to repolarize fully, and we have action potentials that are smaller or non-existent. So results in long-term changes that are a little bit different. The heart alteration of the cardiac muscle can lead to life-threatening arrhythmias. Due to this hyperkalemia. Okay, so the disturbances in potassium could happen from ingesting too much potassium, or loss of potassium in the feces, eating disorders, taking diuretics, dehydration.